With Alyssa, her and I, we like to get on the mountains and ski and snowboard, but there is a time for spring to come and
Yeah.
that to pass too. So yeah, I'm so glad you're here. We have a number of presentations for you to enjoy. Meet some of the people behind the scenes. And so we've got some suppliers, some products that you might recognize. Going to get some wonderful, valuable information. And then we'll make sure we have breaks. Be a kind of a 45-minute presentation, including questions. We'll take a break, then we'll start on the hour every hour with Alex. I'll introduce in a second. Then we have an adaptogens at 1, Qigong at 2 o'clock. Presentation all about minerals and fulvic acid, humic acid. If those sound familiar and you're like, okay, well, what is that actually? That will be a great session to attend, to learn about. And then finishing off the day won't be Orsha Magyar, a nutrition. Just last minute, she's like, actually, I can't make it. So we have someone even more beautiful, Blaine Andrusic, will be dazzling us with more stories and the world of essential oils. So, but without further ado, let's pass this over to Alex Hamilton. He is the head chef here at Light Cellar. And if you know him or don't know him, absolute brilliant mind, incredible creative genius. And he's going to be sharing about seasonal eating. So I won't get in your way. We'll let you start, get right to it.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction. Yeah, oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here, and I'm honored to have so many people here to listen to my presentation, even though I'm like, shaking in my boots. I'm just like, it's like a duck paddling across a pond, it's like, it's so graceful and all that, but then underneath it furiously like that. Anyways, my name is Alex Hamilton. They named a musical after me, Alexander Hamilton, or maybe the other way around, But I've been working with food my whole life. I started as a young rapscallion dishwasher at a fine dining restaurant, and it's evolved. I didn't know that I had a love and passion for food, but I now know that, and a lot of it was because I was on a very Western, lower middle class diet that involved a lot of Costco microwaves and artificial foods. I didn't like steak night. I didn't like asparagus. I didn't like any of these mushrooms or anything like that. I worked at the restaurant. The fourth night I was working, they're like, "Oh, here's some steak and some asparagus." And I was like, "Oh, I don't really like either of those things." And my chef was like, "No, you just haven't had the right version of that." And so I had the steak. I was like, "This is steak?" It's because my stepfather would bring in blade steak, which is a very tough cut of meat, and he'd cook it medium rare, and it was like, but now there's all this thing about jaw workout and like jar size, and he was onto something there, but I don't think he really knew like why. And then the asparagus too. I was like, wow, like this is asparagus. Oh my, and I've since then seen so many times when people are like, I don't like this, and it's like, well, you have a memory of something that was bad, like a bad version of that, and I'm pretty sure you will like it, unless you have like an allergy or like a physical food aversion. Then most of the time it's the chef's job to prepare it well, and that's kind of what ties into seasonal eating is like as a chef connected to farmers, it's kind of my job to take what's around in this terroir and make it very, very craveable, very good, right? It's really easy to have strawberries and be like, strawberries are amazing, right? But like, in the winter, they don't really fit. And I'm going to tell, that's what we're going to get into here is like the why and the how of seasonal eating. I'll start with the why. And the why is there's two categories. Economy and biology. And so economy is somewhat understandable and just like it's a given kind of like we shop local, we build a greater economy here. And also it's like a long-term strategy as well. You know, the more we're paying for farmers here, because we interact with farmers the most out of any profession every day. You know, and well, you know, maybe like power, you know, suppliers like for natural gas and all that, but really, you know, it's farmers. You know, whether it's the grain, you know, in the bread that we're eating, or the eggs, or the frozen fruit, you know, that's all came from farmers, and a lot of it comes exogenously from outside of Canada, you know, and so the only way to do that, you know, to really build a thriving thing, is to focus on these farmers that are doing this amazing work, you know, and working with the seasons. And you know, there's 4 seasons, you know. I'll let you all, you know, that's an apparent. I know. Yeah, well, yeah, there's winter and construction here in Calgary, you know. But when you get outside of Calgary, then, you know, we start to see the seasons, you know, and they all have important times with our biology as well. And so, you know, like economy is just like, that's the first one where a lot of people, you know, like where the wallet, you know, that's where more people, and I mean, there's a growing change in that, but more people were thinking with their wallets rather than with their like long-term strategies and all that. And that's why we have this huge globalized, you know, like agriculture system, when, you know, we could be having this really good localized agriculture system. And I'm not saying that, like, you know, like everybody loves chocolate, coffee, and all that. It's the 80-20 rule, you know. And so, you know, because I love making the chocolate here, you know, like I'm not naysaying that, but like when like 80% of our calories is a good benchmark to be looking at, of like local, or as local as possible. You know, it comes in concentric rings of, you know, like that. You know, the very least is the farms around Calgary, or your own garden. You know, that's kind of the first ring. And then within Alberta and the Saskatchewan, you know, Manitoba, BC, and all that, and then like out from there, you know. And the more we can keep it localized, the in the long run, the cheaper things will be, because there's going to be a, you know, the old supply and demand idea. So yeah, it's just that's the economy. So then we'll get into biology, and, you know, and I've been studying leptin. Does anyone know what leptin is? Okay, so for those that don't know, leptin is a master hormone, along with cortisol and melatonin. And so what leptin is an energy kind of calculator of the body, you know. And so there's light codes in food. All food has light codes in it. And so like the light code, for example, of a mango is not going to be, you know, congruent with like Northwest Territories in the winter, you know. And so it contains like fresh fruit. I even think dried fruit and all that has, or no, fresh fruit has something called deuterium, and deuterium is heavy water. And so heavy water was famously fought over in World War II because it contains nuclear reactor, like that's what contain nuclear reactors in, is deuterium. But it's just because it's a biological process where it becomes easy water, or exclusion zone water. And exclusion zone water is what's in our fascia. And so there's certain times in our biology where we're going to need this, and when we're not going to need it. And so you know, when we start to think, at least think seasonally, we start to get a little bit more aligned with our natural rhythms, you know. And we've been, in my opinion, we've been kind of torn from our natural rhythms for a very long time. I suspect on purpose, but, you know, a coincidence, accidents, you know, like there's a lot of money in having us kind of not naturally aligned, right? That's where a lot of sickness comes in, and everything, is when we're out of alignment with our natural biology. And so you know, the more seasonally we eat, the more nutrition is available, because like nutrition has like the bioavailable vitamins, the minerals and all that has a half-life on it. A lot of the time, there is instances where, you know, preservation kind of helps keeps these things, but a lot of the micro minerals that we require and enzymes and everything have a half-life on it. So the longer it stays in storage, the longer the quicker those deplete in, especially like fresh things. And we'll get into that, like you know, because every season has like areas of the plant that we want to focus on, you know, that like in the spring it's shoots and leaves, you know, and so shoots and leaves are, you know, the budding and the beginnings of the plant. And, you know, like asparagus, one here that's very available that not a lot of people know about is fireweed shoots. They're absolutely amazing, delicious, you know. Fiddleheads, that's not here, but, you know, over in BC, there's a lot of fiddleheads, which is a fern, an edible fern plant that, you know, you do have to cook it and make sure, because a lot of these things have alkaloids and, you know, and there's a lot of argument like online and all that of how should I eat, you know, like plant-based or fully carnivore, or, you know, and all that. And in my opinion, it's like, you know, we all have different needs biologically, and we have, you know, when we're eating in sync with our biology, a lot of the time we need some of those alkaloids. We need, you know, things to kind of activate the liver. The first organ that is activated when we eat is the tongue, you know. And so what the tongue does, and we're gonna do the I don't know if you ever seen my class. I love it. It's the flavor cross, and so it is. Because a lot of people believe that, you know, the opposite of bitter is sweet. And so a lot of people will throw a lot of things to sweeten to get rid of the flavor of bitter, but that's not true. You know, it's actually salt that counteracts bitter. And that's why a lot of the times in cooking, we have herbs and things like fresh herbs, because we need that bitter to kind of round it out. So I just have it so it's like aligned, you know, because there's the 4 quadrants that we're gonna get into. So in this flavor cross, so that is soup. That is. I know how to use English. I swear. I promise. So with soup, across from soup is sweet. So make sure that you eat a lot of soup to counteract your sweets. Okay. Anyways, so sour. So the tongue. What happens in the tongue when we eat something? We have a flavor. You know, a corresponding organ gets activated. You know, and a lot of the time, you know, for bitter, it is the liver. You know, to be like, okay, there's medicine and the heart as well. You know, in Chinese medicine, they actually have, you know, all of these corresponding with. There's 5 tastes in Chinese medicine, and they all correspond with a different organ. And I'll write those in a little bit. Anyways, and so in the middle is umami. And so I don't know, it's pretty well known now, but they only discovered it, Japanese scientists discovered it in the 70s or the 80s. And because they were I swear there's another flavor, you know, and people were, you know, and then through research, they realized that there is another flavor, and that's umami. And umami is like mouthfeel. And that happens with like glutamate, which is like a protein, you know, like MSG famously is actually like the original MSG was actually salt, like straight from seaweed. And so they used to flavor with that. And the umami is like a mouthfeel. And there's another way to get umami, is if these are all kind of in alignment, then, you know, the mouthfeel happens. And that's usually the efforts of a chef is to have like a well-balanced dish where, you know, everything is not too sweet, not too sour, you know, that, but all of these are represented. So the whole tongue gets there. And so, you know, bitter is like the heart and the liver. Sweet is the pancreas. And I mean, the liver is involved with most of these, but then, you know, salty is also, I believe, the heart. And I've written down, and the kidneys. And so that's for like, for vital energy. And it actually makes sense too, because minerals, we need minerals. And for us to get actual like cellular hydration and like mitochondrial hydration, we do need minerals to put that in, like good amounts of magnesium, sodium, potassium, you know, like that. So, and then sour is the liver and the skin as well, you know, and so, and it makes sense too, like a lot of the time. And I would say the gallbladder as well. In my experience, you know, and it just makes sense in cooking as well, is if you have something really fatty, you do want sour in there, just as a flavor thing too. You know, many times, if something's it's too fat forward or too kind of umami and mouthfeel, the sour will cut that and just make it better. And then spicy is also because like umami and spicy are more mouthfeel things. Like it's not as much a flavor as it is a sensation. You know, spicy is, you know, sensation. I did the hot ones challenge, and you know, so I intimately know spicy, and I don't recommend it. And spicy is actually for the fall. Actually, let's put those on there too. So. And then I'm going to pull out Malcolm's famous quadrant chart, you know, that I love. That was just like, it made so much sense. It's based on Weston A. Price's. If you don't know Weston A. Price, you know, he was a dentist in the turn of the 20th century. His son died of a root canal that he had performed on him, and he was just like, why, you know, why do we have to do this? And so he was on a mission to figure out why, you know, turn of the century America, you know, England, like European places, why these things were happening, especially in the mouth. And I think that's going to tail end, because I believe that we have a dental talk there, which I'm not going to get super into. But so he went to explore like indigenous places like all over the world that didn't have a lot of westernization. And he found that they all kind of fell into, there was 4 quadrants. And so, so it's because like this kind of just like works into the chart. I was just like, wow, you know, like it's pretty cool. Like other than this one where, you know, fungi could be, you know, sweet and bitter, and then plants are very sweet and bitter. You know, like most saccharine carbohydrates come from, well, actually it all comes from plants. You know, other than honey, which is from plants, but then transferred through animal. Um, so it goes into here, and then animal, sweet, and, you know, salty. A lot of salts or minerals come from like the organ meats and all that. Microbial, you know, is anything fermented, you know, and then we're finding out now that we're more microbes in us than there are, you know, like it's crazy the amount of bacteria in there. And then yeah, fungi. And so all of these emerge at different times in the seasons as well, you know, and so, you know, plants and fungi are really like spring, starting in spring. There's a few fungi that pop up. Summer, they're just super, you know, they start to become abundant, and then fall, they're at their height. And then winter, there's still some that we can get from winter, like chaga and reishi and these polypores. Plants, you know, same thing, right? You know, like it kind of goes into winter, and then like everything except winter, really. Like in this area, animal is one of those ones that, it's like at the height of summer is usually when, like hunting season and all that is not there, because we have such an abundance of this food. And so I'm going to talk about like the deuterium levels again, so if we're eating a mango like in the winter, and again, this is like, it's 80-20, like I'm guilty of this as well, is like having a mango or pineapple in this. There's a light code in there, right? And so that light code is like, oh, you're eating in a sunny climate. Okay, cool. So UVA, I believe, and UVB is what burns deuterium, and it's also infrared light. So we need the sun if we're going to be eating a lot of these high deuterium foods, like simple carbohydrate, like high sugar fruits and things like that. And so even, well, I mean, most things are fruits, right? Like squash, fruit. Yeah, there's very little other than root vegetables that have like a lot of high carbohydrates in that. And so we're kind of meant to eat them at these times, because like another big thing that I've been finding with this is that, and again, as a guy who worked in restaurants, I've been serving people food way after dark, and our biology isn't meant to be eating after the sunlight goes down, right? Because we want our melatonin to come up. And so, but if we're under all this blue light and things like that, then our melatonin like the body's just like, oh, okay, well, it's still daylight, like let's keep on burning cortisol, and the more cortisol out of sync that we have, the more leptin resistant we become. And so that it's very important. And when we're leptin resistant, then the body doesn't know what to do with the energy. So it will store fats. It will, like the liver will create fat like as storage, as energy. It turns into fat from the liver, and because the liver has a store of glucogen. I'm diabetic, and so I've intimately found out that like the liver is a beautiful wonder. It's the king of the organs for a reason. But if I'm feeding it a bunch of carbohydrates and I don't have like the sunlight to burn it, and then I'm not like active and all that, it's going to turn into fat. But then also it's like my glucogen levels in my liver are going to stay sustained, so that then this fat comes, and then I have a store of glucogen, and then if I keep on adding on to that, the leptin, becomes like, I become leptin resistant, because the body's like, well, I got all this energy, like what am I, I'm burning all this energy, I'm storing all this energy, it just doesn't know what to do. So it is intimately connected to our like our circadian, it's called circadian biology. And so circadian biology is really where the lack of energy or the growing of fat, like exogenous, like just extra fat and all that comes from, is because we're out of sync with our circadian biology. And seasonal eating has a lot to do with that, because if we're eating, constantly having mango smoothies in the middle of winter, then the body, the leptin is like, well, we got all this energy, we got all this UV, apparently, and then if we don't get that UV light to kind of burn off the deuterium, then mitochondrially, all the mitochondria gets saturated with deuterium, and then then the mitochondria just stops functioning, and then it's a whole thing from there, because if the mitochondria kind of stops, like the engines of the cell stop, then we need to go into autophagy, and that will get, and that's actually another sequitur, is that, we also eat out of, it's kind of got it backwards, that like in the winter, we're not supposed to eat as much, because, like especially at our latitude, that like we don't have a lot of sunlight, and we're not supposed to be eating once the light goes down, even under artificial light, because like it's going to confuse the body where we are in the world, and And that's not to say that we can't, you know, like enjoy a little bit, but it's good to know that if we're getting a lot of our energy from, you know, from like night eating and things like that, we're gonna create more leptin resistance. And also leptin is kind of the precursor to insulin as well. So if like when my body is leptin resistant, I also become insulin resistant, right? And so insulin resistance is and I'm actually shocked to I've been talking to people in the diabetic community. They don't realize that we have a dual metabolic process. And so we have fat and we have glucose, you know, and we need both of them. You know, I'll tell you very intimately that when my brain doesn't have glucose, it gets scary. You know, like I remember talking to some like, oh, I'm like low blood sugar, and people are like, I know, I'm like, I get hypoglycemia. I'm like, dude, you've never felt like this. You know, like I turn into my wife is here, and she actually had to save my life just a little while ago because my glucose levels went below a dangerous thing, and I went into like, you know, seizures and things like that, and it's scary. You know, like I can't think properly and all that. So you know, it's like a myth that we don't need glucose. We need glucose, especially in today's world to function. You know, but in the winter, you know, we're supposed to eat less. We're supposed to be like fasting more. We're supposed to be, you know, like kind of bundling up and just, you know, it's like warm and endure. It's like stay warm, endure, wait for spring, you know, and then everything awakens. Just like, you know, it's just like the ground. You know, if we look at the ground, we can see that it's very reasonable to be like, oh yeah, all the plants, you know, kind of die off. The perennials, you know, they go into hibernation, and then in the spring they start again. And so I think we are supposed to do that too. And so there is like there's a thing with winter though that also we want to have like really rich, you know, warming foods, and that's a big one. Is we there's more animal available, you know, like even during the harvest, you know, like a lot of harvesting animals happens in the fall, and then it's for the winter to preserve. You know, like root vegetables and cellar stable vegetables are actually, you know, they've been showing that sweet potatoes, beets, squash, and all that we're meant to eat those. It's just not, you know, we don't eat as much as we're in the fall. You know, the fall is when we're getting ready to nourish, preserve, and defend. And that's you know, that's when all the harvests happen, and you know, everything is at the highest bounty, there's a spectrum that I like to kind of think of when I'm thinking about seasonal eating. You know, it's like it starts in spring, you know, we'll say, and it's like things that are left over from the winter, from the preservation and all that we're going to be using, but then we're going to start gathering shoots, leaves, and buds, you know, and then we integrate that into like preserved and all that. So we got the starting to get the fresh with the preserved, and then in summer, you know, we have a little bit of the buds and the, you know, like spruce tips, all that stuff with the bounty, so that this is the height of fresh eating, you know, like not as much meat, like very little bit of not a very little bit, but you know, not as much meat, and you know, kind of the height of all of the bounty. And then fall starts. That's when we're starting to preserve all of our bounty. You know, that's when vinegars are started and things like that, so that we can have all of. We're getting ready for the you know, the microbes are starting to come in and all that with preservation. And then winter is when it's like, you know, everything that's been preserved, you know, like everything that is cellar stable. You know, we have a lot of meat, a lot of animal meat. Grains is the best time to have grains, if you do eat grains, is in the winter. And I have a few handouts if people want. I wanted to do like a bunch of recipes and all that, but I was like, oh, ran out of time. But just like some ideas that you can have, and you know, like drinks are another, like elixirs and all that is like kind of following those principles. You know, in the height of summer, we want to have like vibrant, you know, like flower essences and things like that. And as the winter is more like, you know, hearty, like hot chocolates, preserved things.
What's the other season? You have sour.
Oh, yes, right, yeah. I got scatterbrained. So, and this is based on Chinese medicine, and I'm not like, you know, I've just been talking to a lot of my friends that are really into TCM, and I've found that it's just like there's so much wisdom in it. So spicy or umami is the fall, but I would also say it's sweet as well. That's when we got like squashes. We're still eating the bounty of the summer berries and things like that. And so, but then in Chinese medicine, it is the transition of so the equinoxes and things like that is associated with sweet. Yeah, like going into winter, late winter going into spring, late spring going into summer. Like that's what that's the associated the season, you know, or lack thereof. And so we're gonna get into the how, you know, and the how might be very evident or self-evident, but maybe not for some. The first one is getting to know farmers. You know, that I think that's the most important thing. You know, so much in our society is based on like literally people that do nothing for us day to day, but the illusion of it, like, you know, politicians. People are, oh, this politician, that politician. I'm like, do you know a farmer? like, do you realize that without farmers, you know, and this has happened in many societies where they got rid of farmers and, you know, some bad stuff happened. So, you know, like getting to know farmers, you know, like we have so many farmers markets and we have so much ability to interact with them and, you know, and show them appreciation. Like I think that, you know, we don't show the rock stars of our society enough like appreciation, and that is, you know, like that's the first thing, and you get to know them. You know, the greatest thing about that is that I can go to a farm, I can be like, is there any illegal, you know, because like I used to be a part owner of a vegan vegetarian restaurant, and a lot of people were like, oh, I'm eating kind and all that. I'm like, you having cashews and strawberries, you know, like I dare you to go look up cashew fingers, you know, and it's not to say there are some amazing farms that are fair trade, equitable, and all that, but for the most part, you know, there's a lot of, you know, like, because for it to be cheap, you know, there has to be something, you know, there has to be a cost cut, and a lot of the time that's labor, and so, anyways, but you know, I can go to any farm, and I can be like, you know, I can somewhat, if I can't inspect it like myself, if I can't go on, then probably don't want to get from there anyway. But you know, like I've been to so many farms, and I've met so many producers, and here in Alberta, we got some really, really good. There's a the more that there's like a conscious demand and understanding that, you know, like politicians should have zero say in anything farm, you know, related, right? And but the more that you get to see these people and understand that there's a metaphoric gun to a lot of farmers' heads, because they get on board with this globalized Monsanto system versus, you know, this localized regenerative system, which is like one of the most beautiful things. Like, you know, I don't know if you've ever seen the Littlest Big Farm or The Biggest Little Farm. You know, but the crescendo of that, I literally, like, I had a tear. I was like, oh my God, this is such an amazing story, and it's happening all around here. You know, we have that, and then also the other one is gardens. You know, like start a garden. You know, fail at the garden many times. Keep on failing every season, so you get better and better and better. You know, and start with something that you feel comfortable. You know, like just tomatoes. And then and there's a little note in tomatoes is one thing that I've found is that you want to try to strain and peel your tomatoes from the seeds, because there's an alkaloid called solanine in it, and it at high levels can cause indigestion, and it goes under the radar for a lot of people because they're just like, oh, I must be allergic, but it's like, no, you got a toxic amount of solanine in you, and it has nothing to do with your, like food. It's not food. It is food poisoning, but it's not bacterial caused food poisoning. It's literally alkaloid caused food poisoning. And so if anybody likes fried green tomatoes, I'd advise against it, because that's like where the height of solanine is. And that's also potatoes too, like once they start to be like, oh, I'm going to become a plant again, the critical mass of toxic alkaloids are there. So if you ever have any eyed potatoes or green or anything like that, keep them so you can plant them, but do not eat them. Like that's, again, that's another one. And that is against our circadian biology as well, because, we're not supposed to eat things that are going to multiply to give us more, and so it's very good to do that. What else am I? Oh, okay. So in the fall and winter, because we are building our like, we should always have a good gut microbiome, but in the fall and winter, that's when we build it. So in the fall and winter, we want to cook a lot of our food. Like, we don't want a lot of fresh food, and it's also kind of apparent in the crops as well, because you can't eat raw squash. Don't eat raw squash. It's not good. But all of those things. I mean, raw carrot is an exception that I would say. There's a lot of really good fiber and prebiotics in raw carrot, but the exceptions to all rules. But for the most part, we want to eat, or we want to cook our food, because we want to keep us like, we're starting to get warm. Like, we don't want to have anything, because it's harder for the body to warm up than it is to cool down. There's more mitochondrial action, there's more calories burned, and all that. And so, and that's why I like cold water. Like ice cold water is not the same idea that it constricts, and then we have to expand again. There's a lot of studies on eating out of season will just dehydrate the easy water, the exclusion zone water from our fascia. And I mean, like, a little bit's okay, but if you're not replenishing your hydration, I'm preaching to the choir when I say, like, tap water is absolutely the opposite of what you want to be having. But like, if you have to drink it, then it's like, you're just going to be dehydrating more and more of the exclusion zone water, because like really, we don't need as much water as we're told, unless we're doing like big workouts, we're replenishing, we're doing a lot like detox and all that. But we need more exclusion zone water, and then we won't need as much of it. And that's like mineralized water. That's like spring water if you can. I mean, spring water is the best. The water here, is the closest thing, because it is structured and all that. And structured water is basically exclusion. It's exclusion zone water waiting to get into the body. And so easy water is also known as plasma. And so plasma is like the fourth state of water. Super cool little rabbit hole to go down. But like, that is what's it kind of just all comes down to that, like what we're doing when we're eating is we're eating sunlight, really that's if we can break it down into that. So we want the right amount of sunlight that where our latitude is where we're at. And I mean, it's like the coolest thing to think of, like, where I'm like, oh yeah, that's so true. Like, everything is built on, this sunlight energy, like even like meat, is like with cows, I've heard that, eating like grain-fed cows, the liver has to go through quite the process versus eating grass-fed cows, and that grass is basically just like the accumulation of sunlight, and then it goes through the body. Oh, it's just so cool. Anyways, that is that. And is there any questions?
Can you give us one or two things that we can do for the spring that fit into the chart there?
Oh, yeah. So I one thing to do is figure out some foraging. You come foraging, because there's a lot of shoots, and if you can start identifying shoots, you can definitely, start, getting like fireweed shoots. Or again, but it's like fireweed is like my favorite herb, like as of late. Like it's just amazing. We're doing something called Ivan's chai. Well, not like I put it into drinks here, but so getting to know your shoots and understanding foraging concepts, that you don't want to be like grabbing 30 from this area. You want to grab like two or three, so we can keep it, sustainable and all that. Another thing is fresh dairy and eggs are that this is the spring is the best time to start eating them, because in just like a closed, like perfect nature scenario, spring is when there's a lot of eggs, and that's when milk production really ramps up. So that it's like finding those, and then also find some morels too. Morels are they're a spring, I mean like late spring, but spring mushroom, and it's one of the first mushrooms that like to be out. So but this is when you can really get to start to know the spring vegetables, asparagus season. Like I know that the farmers are like the fresh sheets on the farms are going to be, just packed. Is it when I start to see asparagus, and I was like, oh yes, this is it. This is exciting. So does that answer the question? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Yes.
Totally, just this is one I know of, but maybe there's more. With carrot,
Mhm.
you put it with oil and let it sit for a while so it brings out is it vitamin A?
And the carotenoid. No. It's just what fat you're using, and so you'd want to use like an olive oil or something, just something that isn't super high in omega-6, which is that's why there's all this thing about, you've heard about seed oils, is because it's like this toxic load of omega-6. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like in small amounts, but in high amounts it is yeah. And so carrot in that is because a lot of things are fat soluble. And actually that's one that I totally forgot. And then it is that cholesterol is actually like UV, so that's what produces the vitamin D within us naturally. So we do need these fats, and we do need this cholesterol, but we need to have the right amount of UV for it, or we're going to have high cholesterol. But anyway, so yes, there are like beets is another one, because like pigment, a lot of the time holds these fat soluble vitamins. So anything with pigment really is like, it's good to have it in that. But some of them you want to cook, like beets and all that, but raw carrot is one of those that is like the colorful vegetables. Yeah.
All right. Did you enjoy that? Yeah, I got some good knowledge, good inspiration.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, my number one job is to keep us on time. We're quarter two. That's going to give you 15 minutes to kind of break. There's bathrooms there. There's water there. There are now one of 3 demos that are going to be set up today. So you can go out there and meet Emil and taste what he has to offer. And then next we have Adaptogens, Beginner's Guide to Using Herbs and Functional Mushrooms from a local maker, Lucy McMurray. So we'll start right at the top of the hour again at 1 o'clock. So come on back, and thank you for being here. And thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex.
This is being recorded. Yeah. Yeah, so we're gonna put something yep.
Great job.
Is anyone else gonna use this?
Doubt it.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
What do you love?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Still thinking like I had in my. But I was like, what did you play? I know.
Small children.
Well, that's awesome. Awesome.
Great, Alex.
Oh, thank you.
That's why, like, my grandmother always said that you always eat vegetables, any vegetable.
Yeah.
And decades later, like, because that's what helps you,
And it's so like
because
it's like
the back in the 80s, it was like no fast food. All this suggestions were like, don't put fat on your vegetables. Yeah, it's a big difference.
yeah, oh totally. And I love that it's like yeah, grounded, right?